Welcome to Tilly's Trans Tuesdays. Today we have an interview with a speech pathologist who helped change my life. We're going to talk all about trans voices and how to safely work on changing them. So let's get into Trans Voices 3, Science and Tips. Hi, I'm Tilly Bridges, your host, and I'm joined by my writing partner, my best friend, my wife, our token cis representation, my partner in all things because I keep dragging her along with me, Susan Bridges.
Hello.
Hi. Our guest this week is Jein, MSCCC SLP. That sounds so fancy. A speech-language pathologist specializing in voice and swallowing disorders with a particular passion for gender-affirming voice training. Jein received her bachelor's degree from the University of California, San Diego, and her master's degree in speech-language pathology from Boston University. She holds a certificate of clinical competence from the American Speech-Language Hearing Association and a license from the state of California. And she has the honor of being our first cisgender guest ever. Welcome, Jein.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
It's so great to talk to you again because we spoke to each other for an hour every few weeks for 2 years. And honestly, that's more than I get to speak to most of my friends sometimes. So I actually miss our little chats, and you correcting me every time my voice slipped.
I miss our conversations too. People don't talk about it, but I feel like that's definitely a thing I think other speech pathologists probably go through too, where we think about our past clients and the conversations we've had. And, our clients touch our lives too. I don't think that's talked about enough either. So,
yeah, because, when we're especially trying to get to using all of the techniques in conversation, we're just talking. And so you're asking me all these questions about what's going on in my life and, how was your Christmas? What were you and your wife up to with your writing careers? And so it was always just like, it was this personal discussion. We talked about your vacation when you saw the turtles. It was so great. So
yeah, and I've actually always been I've always asked you about your writing work, and I want to watch all those TV shows that you've written. So I'm still looking forward to
hopefully.
Yeah.
But it's funny though, because like in, voice training, like speaking about things, it's like thinking and talking. It's like chewing gum and walking at the same time.
That's the hardest part.
So it's like an opportunity for you to mess up.
Right.
Because you're just thinking about it.
And she would always let me know when I did. So it was
very
subtly.
Very
Yes. Okay, so before we get any further, where can people find more about you online afterward if they would like more?
I have a private clinic, and I have an Instagram account that I'm working on with a couple other colleagues, that has a little bit of information about trans voice training, gender-affirming voice training. And that is the account where once the book, whenever it gets published, is where we're planning to put it. So I don't know which one I should.
I think the Instagram is probably good, and people can just follow you there. And
Okay, the Instagram handle is @affirmvoice. So AFFIRMVOICE.
Excellent. And yes, you have a book coming out about trans voice training, right?
I do.
That's excellent.
We don't know which way we're going to go with it yet, self-publishing or through a publisher. So that's still something we're trying to figure out.
Well, everyone should go follow you and keep an eye on that, because I think that's going to be very helpful. But I hope this episode will be really helpful for people too. So I wanted to start off by asking how you got into speech pathology.
I originally got into speech pathology thinking I was going to work with children.
Oh.
I was in college. I was a psychology major. I was
Okay.
like, I'm not going to be able to do much with this when I graduate, because that was back when we had our recession. Well, we're in another one, but back when we had our recession, that was 2008, I think. So I was like, yeah, no, psychology degree isn't going to get me anywhere. What can I do that I'll really enjoy? And I remembered in high school, one of my friends' moms was a speech pathologist. She came and spoke with our class, and I remember thinking it was interesting. So I volunteered at a private clinic near school, and I I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was really amazing to watch these children come in so frustrated, not having a voice, not being able to speak. And they were moving these little, they're called PECs. They're moving these little pictures around and they were having tantrums, and they were using these things to communicate. Oh, this is what you wanted. Okay. And, you can just see them calm down because they can communicate. And I saw like this mom was telling one of the speech pathologists at the clinic, for the first time, my kid communicated with me. He told me he wanted to go to McDonald's. We were driving by McDonald's, and he communicated that with me. And I could not. She's like, I was so excited that he communicated something to me. I pulled right in. I got to McDonald's, and now every time we go by a McDonald's, he communicates that, and I don't know what to do. But to me, that was just so amazing, giving these, not even just the children, but the whole family, a way to communicate. They just, the amount it changes a person's life. I just thought that was just so wonderful, so beautiful. So that's how I got into speech pathology.
That's really cool that you're able to do stuff like that for people, because I've said multiple times on this show and to you that your help changed my life, but stuff like that is even bigger because you're helping people in such an important way. So it's really beautiful what you do. So I just want you to know that.
Thank you.
So what made you, after getting into speech pathology, what made you want to focus on gender-affirming voice training?
The hospital I work for.
Yeah.
They just told us one day, they announced to us, we are going to start providing services for the transgender population.
Okay.
Speech therapy is going to be one of them. Have fun.
Oh my gosh.
They were just like, good luck with that.
Yeah, they're like, you're a speech pathologist. You have your license. You should be able to figure it out, sort of thing.
Wow.
And yeah, it was, and they gave us like a 1-day sensitivity training, and that was it.
Wow.
And so, of course, me being the person that I am, I can't just provide not great care, right? Like, I'm like, no, I need to do better. And so I did a lot of my own research, but truly, and I was always, I was happy to help, right?
Yeah.
I was always happy to help because, as I said, I was a psychology major. And one of the courses is called Human Sexuality. And there was a panel in that class where they got people, all sorts of different people from the LGBT community, and they kind of had a Q&A session, I guess is what it was.
Sure.
And they were telling their story, and the people from the class could ask them questions. And I just remember being so moved by what they were saying. Again, I've never had any issues. I've always was like, they're all people, whatever, like, we're all the same humans, like, what does it matter? But listening to their stories really moved me. So it was, I've always been a supporter of LGBT rights and all of that. But yeah, once I was given the opportunity, I was like, okay, like, let's do this. I'm going to do this properly. So yeah, I did a lot of my own research. And then my first client, my first trans client, she was amazing. She was the best first client I could have ever asked for. I was very honest with her, and I told her, hey, this is my first time. Like, I have never had any other experience with gender affirming training. If you still want to work with me, I will try my best. And she was like, sure. And she had done so much of her own research. She brought in so much. She gave me a lot of resources that I could check out on my own. She was the one that actually turned me onto Reddit so that I could go through a lot of the Reddit forums and see what the trans population, the trans community was having access to, what they were thinking, So that was really helpful. And she brought in a lot of YouTube videos like, Jane, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? I was able to give her my kind of clinical point of view of like, I'm not sure this is a great idea. This I really like. And then we were able to put that together and do something for her. She ended up being happy with her voice, so I'm glad. Now I feel like I know so much more than back then. And I wish I could contact her again and be like, hi, I know a lot more now. But she's happy with her voice, right? So that's what matters.
That's what matters.
That's all that matters. So I'm not going to reach out to her all of a sudden, it's just as long as she's happy, I'm happy. So
that's great. Okay, so I was wondering if you could get a little bit into the science of why the voices of people assigned male at birth and people assigned female at birth differ. Because I've talked about it a little bit in past episodes, but I am not an expert. So I was hoping that you could give, people listening a little bit of that information about why they're different.
Okay, so before puberty, there actually is not that big of a difference in the pitch range. It's very similar. I've looked up research, and the range, like, they don't even have a lot of research on it because there really is not that much of a difference in the pitch range.
Right.
Now, when puberty happens, life changes, right? Everything changes.
Yeah.
And so during that time, what happens to people who are assigned male at birth is that their vocal tract, so it starts from the lips all the way down to our vocal cords. I wish I had a little picture to show you. But
yeah.
All of that, it gets longer and wider. And then, of course, we also know about the vocal cords kind of increasing in mass. Essentially, it gets bigger. Everything gets bigger. This is where my whole cello and violin analogy always comes in. So if we look at a cello and a violin, same shape or similar shape, but what's the big difference? Cello is much larger, a violin is smaller. Violin has thinner strings, a cello has thicker strings, right? So you can think of the strings as the vocal cords. And you can think of the size of the actual instrument as your vocal tract. The cello has a richer, deeper sound because of the thicker strings and because the sound has a larger space to resonate in. The violin has thinner strings and a smaller space to resonate in, therefore creating a thinner, higher pitched, shriller sound. So for people who are assigned male at birth, they go the route of the cello. People who are assigned female at birth, it doesn't actually grow or anything, but it grows the normal progression, it doesn't get especially bigger, especially thicker, or anything like that.
That's fascinating stuff. I love it. I'm a science nerd, and so I think stuff like that is incredibly cool. And I think that understanding that, like where it's all coming from, was really helpful to me. I think just in understanding why my voice sounded the way I did, and you don't really need to know that to work on changing your voice, but it definitely helped. It gave me a better sort of, I guess, mental picture, not picture, sound, I don't know, to shoot for. So anyway, I think that was really helpful.
So women's also change, but not as much? Or
cis women, you mean?
Yeah, because I'm thinking about like a kid's voice and a woman's voice. There's not that much difference.
I think it deepens a little bit,
right? It does deepen a little bit. As cis women, get older, our voices do deepen a little bit. They're actually, here's an anecdotal thing, but when I first started working at my hospital and I recorded my voicemail greeting, I listened to that. And then when I switched hospitals a few years ago, it was like 9 years later, I listened to that recording because I had to reset it. And it sounded so different. It's like, hi, you've reached Jamie. And then now it's like, hi, you've reached Jamie. So it does change a little bit.
Okay, so hormone replacement therapy doesn't do anything for a trans woman's voice, but it can deepen the voices of trans men or non-binary people who also take testosterone. And I was wondering if you get a lot of trans men or non-binary patients, or do you mostly see trans women?
I also see lots of trans men, lots of non-binary people. Yeah, everybody in the spectrum.
That's great, because as one of the things that I learned, going through the sessions with you, is that it's not just about pitch. There's so much more involved to, trying to use your voice to maybe alleviate dysphoria or get gendered correctly. There's so much, different things that go into it, which we'll get into in just a minute. But
I just wanted to say that from like the cello and the violin example, also it takes more force and effort to play the larger instrument. And I'm thinking the voice is the same way, because like an assigned male at birth, like talk more forcefully, like more effort.
Right. Isn't it? I think you told me that it's the people who are assigned male at birth, their vocal folds close all the way, but assigned female at birth don't. And so that's why they sound breathier, and assigned male voices sound a little more forceful.
Yeah, it's not 100% of the, people who are assigned male at birth,
Sure.
100%, it's, I think the number, like the
You
numbers
mean it's a
vary in
spectrum?
research.
What? Okay.
But yeah, in research, the numbers vary, it's a range, but
Yeah.
I think on average, it's about like 70 to 80%. So yeah, the majority.
So what do you think are the most common pitfalls or struggles for people who are starting their voice training? Are there like similarities and things that people seem to always struggle with more than others?
I think I always, start off by telling my clients, I don't start with pitch. I know everybody wants to focus on pitch first because that's, the most, how do I say, it's the most in your face, right? The most obvious thing that you hear when you first start talking.
Right.
So that's, I think, for a lot of people, like I get a look until I explain that every other part of voice not only contributes, but also when we work on it, it will also not indirectly, but it does work on the pitch. That's just not our goal. And then people kind of get on board. But that's one of the things. Another one, let's see, what's another common, I don't know, pitfall? I'd say, I don't know if this counts as a pitfall, but thinking or hoping that it's, once you go to speech therapy, it's not something that your voice isn't something you're going to have to work on or think about anymore.
Yeah.
That's something that I always also have to kind of reiterate and emphasize throughout therapy. I feel like, for voice training, I give you the tools, I give you the information, but the most important thing is for you to practice by yourself and to experiment by yourself. I'm really big on you have to experiment, because otherwise everyone's going to end up with the same voice, right? That's not what we're aiming for. We want you to find what feels most like you. And I can tell you that, my goal is for you to change your resonance or whatever. But even within changing the resonance, there's so much flexibility, right?
Yeah.
So I want my clients to find in that space of changing resonance what to them feels like, oh, I like this and this feels like me. So
yeah, I think you're right on, absolutely, with the practice, because I practiced daily for a year after we were done, and it took me all of that time to where almost all of it is second nature now, but I always had to stop and think before I talked for years, because it just doesn't come that easily. It's really hard work. And I remember when we were going through the different techniques, and I would record myself and listen back, and I would be like, oh, that sounds really good. Or I'd be like, I think I did that right, but I don't like that as much. Maybe if I pull that back just a little bit, I'll like it better. So I think the experimentation is a really important thing, because we don't want everybody to sound the same. You just want to sound like what feels like you. So
I figure there's probably a lot of people too who just want it to happen right away.
Oh yeah.
They're like, oh God, this is going to take me how long?
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's really common. Like,
yes.
The depression sets in, like, oh God, this is a lot of work.
It's so much work.
And you yelled a lot.
I know.
Oh.
She's like, I don't want to practice. But also, I will say, you running role-playing games and having to talk for like 4 hours at a time really helped get you.
It did help my stamina.
It did.
It was rough, though, for like the first year, because I would get so tired and my voice would sound so terrible.
And then you'd be all grumpy after the game, me like, I didn't sound right. It was so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a thing too. And sometimes it doesn't happen that frequently, but I have had people stop in the middle of voice training and be like, hey, I need a break from this for my mental health.
Yeah.
And I totally understand, it's a process, and it's a slow process, and it's something you want so badly, but it's not something you could rush. So I get that. It's hard. And I feel for my clients too, because I wish, they ask me, Jein, is there anything that you can tell me, anything extra that could, make it go faster? I'm like, I wish I could. I wish I knew. I'm always I'm always adapting what I'm doing. I'm always trying to tweak it a little more to make it a little easier for my clients, a little,
Sure.
But that part I haven't been able to figure out yet. making it go faster.
Yeah, you get this realization early on where you're like, I want to do this and change my voice. And you're like, oh God, it's going to take me forever. And you have to really, just be patient. The patience is really, really
It's
hard.
like working out. It's like,
yeah, incremental gains, tiny bits at a time.
Over and over.
Yep, until you get better at it.
Yeah.
My favorite YouTube video I always give all my clients is the 5-year voice transition.
Yes, I linked to it in one of my past ones. Yeah.
Oh, I love that video, and I love her for putting up that video. Because yeah, it really does show her progression and how even after she got to a point where she was like, oh yeah, my voice sounds feminine, sounds good. Like she continued to work on it and how it continued to change, and somehow it sounds more natural even though it already sounded natural.
Yeah.
I just think it's such a great example. I'm so glad she has that video up in the world.
Yeah. So one of the hardest parts for me with speech therapy was how much I had to remember before talking, and it took so long for it to become second nature. And I've mentioned this before, but I came up with my own little mnemonic device to help me remember all the different techniques. And I wanted to go through them, and I was wondering if you could just give brief explanations to people on what those things are so they know like all of the different things that you have to work on. So my mnemonic device was disturb, spelled with an E and not a U. And the D is for diaphragmatic breathing.
So diaphragmatic breathing is, I mean, the core idea behind it is the breath support. You want to make sure that you're working with enough breath, right? So abdominal breathing, I say you put your hands on your rib cages and try to breathe into your hands so that your rib cages expand into your hands. That is diaphragmatic / abdominal breathing. Most people, that doesn't come easily to them. Most people are more used to a shallower kind of chest or shoulder movement sort of breathing.
Yeah.
So I usually tell people, lie down, put your hands on your rib cages and breathe in and out. And when you're lying down, most people will be using that sort of breathing, that diaphragmatic abdominal breathing. And then once you get the feel for that, then try sitting up and see if you could replicate that. And then, start incorporating other things that you normally do, like brushing your teeth or taking a shower, something that you don't have to think so hard about to do while you're checking in with your breathing to see, am I still doing that? Yes, I am. And eventually that turns into something that you do normally.
Yeah, and it was really, that's one of the things that I was so surprised by, because you don't think about your breathing as being part of speech, but it gives you so much more air to work with when you're talking. It made a really big difference, and it took me a while to figure out how to do it. Okay, so the I is for intonation.
So intonation, what we mean by that is I just simply describe it as the ups and downs in your sentences. So for voice feminization, we look at increasing the intonation. So my example is, my name is Jane and I'm a speech pathologist. I could increase the intonation by saying, my name is Jane and I'm a speech pathologist. For masculinization, typical American English intonation tends to kind of start higher and go lower and flatten out. Da 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 is usually what I explain it as. So my name is Jane and I'm a speech pathologist. That's more of the masculine intonation, or the masculine sounding, masculine perceived intonation. And so Tilly and I worked on increasing that intonation, having more bounce. I always tell people, I don't want you to sound like you're talking to a 5-year-old unless you want to, but but we, in practice, that's what we do initially, because your vocal cords aren't used to stretching and moving so much. And we got to teach your vocal cords how, the feeling, and when we kind of overdo it like that, then you learn the control so that you can fine tune it to get it to the level that you feel comfortable with. Just, I always say a little more animated, a little more bounce is what we're aiming for usually.
Yeah, you're right, though. It was really funny because at the beginning, when I was recording and listening back, it sounds like you're a kindergarten teacher or something, the way you have to learn it. And so, it's really goofy.
And then you get to Valley Girl.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so now I don't know if this one applies to other people as much as it did me, but the S was for slow down because I was always going way too fast. And if you slow it down even further than normal speech, if you go really slow, you can focus on all the different things as you're speaking, which was really weird. So, do you find a lot of people have that same issue?
Yes. And I understand why people do it because they just want to speak naturally. They don't want to sound all the weird things that I make people do. They don't want to sound like that, right? So I get it. But I'm always cueing my clients. Okay, I want you to do that again, but I want you to slow it down so that you can really listen to yourself or you can really feel for what we're aiming for.
That was beautiful, by the way. I haven't heard that from you in a long time. It gives me warm nostalgia feelings. So,
yes, that is a cue. That is a real cue that I give. So yes, Tilly has heard that.
many times. Okay. And the T is for tongue positioning.
Yes. So tongue positioning, I'm going to be honest with you and say that this is a me thing. This is a Jein method thing.
Okay.
I don't think all or if many teach tongue positioning at all. But for me, I have found that it works. So, and
it was really helpful for me. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad. So what we mean by tongue positioning is, talking about the vocal tract and resonance. The space that the sound resonates in, we want that to get a little bit smaller. And the space that we're really looking at is the oral cavity. So I think when you read online about any sort of resonance, they say, oh, bring it into your oral cavity, bring it forward. But the oral and nasal cavity tend to, in my opinion, is still pretty large. So to kind of make it a little bit smaller, I tell my clients to position their tongue a little bit higher. Yes, the back of your tongue should be pulled up so that it's touching your upper molars. Now, we're not pushing it up so that you're talking like that. You're not pushing it up. It's just resting up there. You just want to feel the upper molars on the sides of your tongue.
Yeah, it was really weird to get used to talking that way, but it really helps. Do you go the other way for voice masculinization? Do you try to get them to like drop it any, or do most people already keep it dropped as sort of the default position?
I think that most people, while the front of their tongue, the tongue tip rests up, the back of their tongue doesn't. It's not completely down, but it's not completely up either. I don't usually tell people about tongue positioning when I'm working on voice masculinization. I usually, how we did E-ifying?
Well, that's the next one.
Yeah, the next one.
Well, I do aw-ifying for voice masculinization.
Okay.
And so in doing aw, your tongue automatically has to drop. So yeah, I don't target it specifically.
Sure.
It's not something where you have to tell yourself to hold it in a certain position, but it's indirectly talked about later on.
Okay. Yeah. And then so the E is for E-ifying vowels or aw-ifying. So could you explain what that means?
Yes. So consonants, we can't really change the sound of consonants, but vowels are where we can really change the sound, and vowels are where we can really change the resonance and again the size and shape of where things are vibrating. So when we say E versus aw, why doesn't everybody try it right now? When you go,
that's right, listeners, do it at home.
So like E is like using less of the space inside your mouth,
because when you go,
ah is using more of it, which would deepen versus. I see.
You're catching on.
I'm getting it.
When you say E, everything gets smaller in your mouth, right? Everything tightens, it's smaller. Versus when you go aw, your jaw drops, you have all that space. So E-ifying your vowels, I guess, as an example, would be like, if let's see, what's one of our sentences, Tilly?
Oh, it's been years though. I don't remember. There were so many. I had all those sheets.
What was one that my clients always like? I adore the lore behind Al Gore is one that everybody really likes. So
that's hilarious.
So when you say it normally, it's I adore the lore behind Al Gore. Now when we E-ify it, you tighten your, you put your mouth in the position of E. I adore the lore behind Al Gore. it changes the sound, right? I adore the lore. I adore the lore. It's lighter, it's brighter. So that's that resonance change. And then for awifying, for our people who want to masculinize, for awifying, sweet dreams are made of these is one I like to use. So sweet dreams are made of these. If I awify it, sweet dreams are made of these. So instead of these, in the video you can see my mouth, but these versus all these. I'm not closing my jaw as much. I'm leaving a little space in there so that there's more space to resonate.
Excellent.
It is so cool.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
The science with it is so amazing. Okay. So then R is resonance,
which we've already said.
Right. But if we could talk a little bit about that, because that was the hardest thing for me. And sometimes I feel like even now it still slips. You probably heard it slip in this call. And you've been very kind to not call me on it.
I'm not going to, I'm not here to listen to your voice and judge, right?
No, that's work.
That's right.
But also, I always say, right, it's not about being perfect. It's not about holding something perfectly for 100%. Nobody does that. My own resonance changes, as I'm talking. That's not the point. So I'm talking about pitfalls. That is something that I do see, of course, it makes sense, right? It's a goal you're working towards. So people want to do it perfectly 100% of the time. And I always tell my clients, like, it's not about doing it perfectly 100% of the time. Nobody can do it 100% of the time. Again, like even when I'm talking, my resonance changes and I'm not working on anything. So it's just getting to a place where you feel like you're doing it consistently enough where the sound of your voice it makes you happy. So sorry, going back to resonance, right?
Yes.
Resonance, I always say, is the most important part of changing your voice. And I break it up into stages, and resonance is a stage where it usually takes the longest to achieve, but it makes the biggest changes in your voice. It's where your voice can actually more permanently change. Now, permanent used loosely, because if you want it to be permanent, it will be permanent. If you don't want it to be, it won't be. But resonance is, it's where your voice, or where the sound, or the space and the placing of where the sound is vibrating. It's how we manipulate the size of our oral cavity to create the sound that we're aiming for.
Right. And in voice feminization, like I went through, that's trying to feel that vibration sort of up by your lips. And that was really hard for me because I don't even know. I barely feel it. I don't know. I think a lot of people can feel it better. It was really hard. I'm like, where is it? Am I doing it right?
Yeah. So that the vibration part is really difficult for people to feel. And I think for like singers, they're trained, right? They're trained to be able to put their voice out and all different, like they have the chest voice and head voice and whatever. I'm not a singer, so I get
Me neither.
I get why it's hard, because when I was just learning oral resonance in grad school, me trying to do it was just so difficult. But essentially, when we go with an M, we feel the vibrations on our lips, sometimes in our nose, like anywhere in that facial area. We say, okay, we got that forward resonance. Now for voice feminization, I actually, again, I said oral cavity is still pretty large. I like to make it a little bit smaller. It's the soft palate where I usually kind of tell people to try to get the vibrations. So the soft palate, if you put your tongue up behind your teeth and run it all the way back, you'll notice it goes from hard to soft, right? So hard palate, soft palate. So soft palate is kind of where I like to get people to get their vibrations for voice feminization, if they can feel it. It's a very subtle vibration. And then for voice masculinization, I kind of try to bring it down a little more into the chest. So I usually tell people, put your hand right here. And when I say chest, it's not so far down. It's actually just like right below your neck. And if you go E versus aw, I think you'll really feel the chest vibrating more. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then the B was for breathiness.
Breathiness. This is something that my voice feminization clients really struggle with, because most don't want a breathy sounding voice, which I get. So I always kind of start off with a disclaimer, like, this practice voice is absolutely not at all the voice I am aiming for you, unless this is what you want. breathiness, kind of like I mentioned with the intonation, I start off with the breathiness because like sounding really breathy, like talking like this.
Yeah.
Because, which, as you can see, Tilly does not sound like that right now, right?
No, I don't.
But you would do it, and then I would not be able to hear you ever. It was very frustrating.
When I was working on it,
You were working on it.
my voice was like
I
that.
was like,
Hi.
can't. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's another, kind of training step. It's to be able to control the breath and the airflow. I feel like most, not all, but most of my voice feminization clients come in not having enough air coming out when they're speaking, and it's just full vocal cord closure. Well, again, I can't really say this because I didn't look inside, but like just simplifying things.
Sure.
Just simplifying things. It sounds like there is not a lot of air coming through and it's all voice.
Yeah.
And so we're basically teaching your vocal cords and your respiratory system, just let out a little bit of that air while you're voicing, and that'll create some of that lighter kind of voice that we associate with a more feminine voice. So the example I give is so my voice tends to be actually mine's more on the breathier side just normally, but if I were to do kind of like this like full, I'm really trying to be forceful, like this is how I'm talking, versus like, I really want to talk breathy, and I don't know, this is my like yoga teacher voice or whatever. Namaste, right? As someone who has never taken a yoga class. and then there's this middle ground where the way I'm talking right now, where there is some of that lightness and that breath coming through, but it isn't this like pushed, forceful quality. And I think that's that quality that people do want. They don't want to do the breathiness part, which again, I get, but I teach it as a way to teach you control, because I want you to be able to choose how much breathiness you can have in your voice, right? So I want you to be able to modulate instead of me getting you to a point where, we're at like somewhere in between and we're good to go. I want you to be able to choose and you to be able to experiment with it and see what you like the sound of the best.
Yeah, the thing the breathiness helped me the most with was not hitting the vowels in the middle of words too hard, because I was always pushed to get the vowels out. And so the breathiness, I don't want to talk like that, but it helped train me to hit the vowels softer and let more air out so that it's not so forceful on every vowel, which helps with the not sounding so much like a man for me. So, okay. So I know speech therapy isn't covered by insurance for a lot of trans folks that are out there. And for reasons that I've talked about in multiple episodes of this show, trans people are much more likely to be financially strained than cis people are, and many of them can't afford it. And I see a lot of them trying to work on their voices based on like YouTube tutorials. But I've seen some of those and I've just cringed at what they were telling people to do. And I'm so afraid people watching are going to end up hurting themselves. So I was hoping maybe you had some tips that you could give folks on how to safely practice on their own.
Although maybe we should start with the damage that people can do to themselves.
Yeah.
So I think now it's pretty widely known that the swallow and holding your larynx up is something that can cause a lot of strain. But back when I started in the beginning, that was a very common thing that people taught.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, to raise your larynx and then therefore hoping to raise the pitch as well. So you'd swallow, hold, and as you can see, like I'm trying and you can see how it changes my vocal quality.
Yeah.
And that was I'm obviously not doing it as well as some people, because I have seen some trans women have, their voices sound very feminine. I think it sounds great, but for a lot of people, that does not work. That's the thing. It works for some, but it doesn't work for others. And this is one that commonly, for the people it doesn't work for, causes a lot of vocal strain. I have had people who have practiced on their own and they can tell it's really, it was hurting their voice. And so they ended up coming into speech therapy, and we had to do normal voice therapy, not, gender-affirming voice training.
Yeah.
It's normal voice therapy in the beginning so that we could, get that strain out of the throat. And then we started working on gender-affirming voice training. So yeah, definitely strain, or sometimes people will, try to talk in a pitch that, pitch we can raise, but it has to be gradual. And I feel like if that isn't something that the person was aware of, they will kind of start at a pitch that's a little too high for them, and that causes strain as well. Some people will just end up having a lot of throat pain. So my biggest kind of take home for anybody is when you're doing these, practice things on your own, whether it be through podcasts, YouTube, Reddit, and just trying things on your own, if it's uncomfortable, to the point of pain, stop. It's either not for you, that method is not for you, or you're not doing it the way that it was meant to be done because of probably lack of thorough instruction, most likely, because people, they usually give instructions in a way that makes sense to them, but they probably haven't talked to a lot of people and have seen like the common issues in a way so that they could kind of reword their instructions, right? So if you're feeling pain, definitely that's just stop that one and try to find something else. And when it comes to discomfort, I think Tilly, you could probably speak a little better but there are different types of discomfort, right? Like there is I'm working hard and I'm a little fatigued, sort of like my throat feels a little tired sort of discomfort. And then there's actual like, ooh, this doesn't feel right discomfort when you're practicing. So I think learning kind of the difference between the two is probably going to be really helpful in like self-practice. So I don't know, Tilly, if you could kind of elaborate on the like, this feels like I'm doing something, but it's a little tired, so this is my sign to rest sort of feeling. I don't know.
I think
did you ever really screw up?
What do you mean?
I'm like, go back and she's like, no, you were doing that wrong.
Oh, sure, all the time.
Okay. See, that's important to know. Yeah, people should know that.
Right. Yeah, you mess up and you do things wrong. You do.
Okay.
But yeah, I think the best way to describe it probably it's like any other muscle in your body where like you can tell if you're like if you were working out or like if you're moving and your arms get super tired, when they're tired from use, and the difference between that and oh my God, something's wrong with my arm. Right. This really hurts.
For being like pulling a muscle versus working a muscle.
Right. And I found there were times when other stuff got in the way too. Like if I was really congested, I couldn't do it or it would hurt. It would feel like I was straining. There were a couple. I think there was even one time you stopped our session like 5 minutes in because you said your voice is strained. You're going to hurt yourself if you keep going. So I think the most important thing is to just, like you said, pay attention to that. And if you're tired, if your voice is tired, your throat is tired, to rest it, not keep pushing, because then you just are going to really mess things up.
Yeah, I really always, tell my clients, I understand that this is something that is really important to you. And I understand that you want this to happen sooner than later, but pushing through the pain and, trying to make it go faster is only going to lengthen the time of our sessions and like the number of sessions, because then we're going to have to undo the strain and whatever new habit that you learned. So, always listen to your body.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here, Jein. And thank you again for helping make my life better and I couldn't have made this podcast or my audiobook, which is out now, The Trans-Allegories of the Matrix Begin Transmission. I couldn't have done any of those on my own without you. So, where my voice used to be, I could never have stood listening to myself for that long. So you made all of this possible. So thank you so much.
And I'm sure there's people out there too who are scared about even looking into voice therapy.
Sure.
Like they have no idea. So I'm thinking this is going to help demystify it a little bit.
I hope so.
And
so
that, because sometimes you don't even know what you're getting into, right? It's like, it's helpful to like at least know and then be like, okay, let me sit with this a little bit and think about it.
Yeah.
No, Susan, that's actually a great point, because when my clients come in for an evaluation, what we talked about in our podcast today, like I give a quick like crash course of like, this is what it's going to look like. It's a quick outline, right? Like, this is what it's going to look like. Do you have any questions or do you feel uncomfortable about anything? Like that's definitely it. Like I give my clients kind of like the big picture first so that they know what they're getting themselves into. And if this is not something they wanted, then like they don't have to come back for the next session. It's their choice. So yeah, you're right. I'm sure it demystified it for some people.
Well, I never thought that my voice could sound the way that it does now, or that I would love it as much as I do. So thank you again, because you really did change my life for the better.
Oh, well, thank you, Tilly. Those are very nice words. And to me, it's just it makes me happy, and it makes all the hard work, always feel so worth it when I know that my client, the person in front of me is so happy with the voice that they have. So
well, I'm so glad that there are wonderful people like you out there helping make things better for trans people.
Thank you.
Tilly Bridges, end transmission. Tilly's Trans Tuesdays is hosted by Tilly Bridges and Susan Bridges, with audio editing and sound mixing by Jillian Morgan. Special thanks to Daisy and Jane for the use of Sorry Not Sorry as our show's theme music. Please stop by and show your support at daisyandjane.bandcamp.com and soundcloud.com/daisyandjane. You can find me at Tilly Bridges on Twitter and Hive, on Mastodon at tillybridges@mastodon.social, at facebook.com/TillySBridges, and on Insta at HeckYeahTillyBridges. And you can find Susan on all of those at Susan L. Bridges. The Google Doc and social media versions of this week's topic and all past topics are available at tillystranstuesdays.com. For more information, visit pendantaudio.com. Thanks for listening.